7 o'clock. Time to start with the Wednesday Wind Down webinar, the webinar and YouTube show for folks that like to be outside, folks that like to hang out with their friends and drink beer. Challenging to do that during COVID-19. So here we are virtual. I'm Dan Conger, the host. Tonight's just me. A little change of plans tonight. Originally, the topic I had announced for last week, I had to change that. So Kit Davis was going to be on with us this week. Change of plans. Has family that's affected by the Orange County fire right now, and they had to evacuate. So a little higher priority right there versus a webinar show. We'll have her back on when things calm back down, and hopefully her family can get back in and their property is okay. So be thinking about them. The fire's real, and it's kind of a big deal right now. So tonight I'm doing a topic solo, and I'm going to be talking about the Red Mountain Basin via Helferscher Pass. This is a trip I did with Rich, Sandra, myself, and my brother Mike. The four of us did this 5 or so years ago. It's probably further back than that. So I'm going to kind of bring you through that one and show you what's up. So I'm going to share my screen and let's show you what we got. So here's the basic details on this trip, right? The Red Mountain Basin via Helferscher Pass. So get my advance basic stats. This is 94 miles out of Fresno. So you need to first get to Fresno, and then it's another 94 miles beyond that, which is a good jaunt. But here's one of the rubs is that 94 miles, 22 miles of that is on Kaiser Pass Road. Thanks, Rich, for driving. We just got to get that out of the way. So Kaiser Pass Road is a 1-lane asphalt, kind of an asphalt road that goes back towards Florence Lake. So that's tough, right? The locals know it really well, and they will drive it like bombers, right? But we don't know it, so there's a lot of pulling off and a lot of working with that one. This is going to start and end at Florence Lake. That's it's a loop trail. If you want, there's an optional $28 boat ride that's going to shave off about 4 miles of the trip of pretty uninspiring terrain. I'd say boat trip's absolutely worth it. The whole trip is about 45 miles plus or minus. It might be a little bit more. When I just redrew the route, it came up 43, and I didn't bother with the switchbacks and stuff. So it's somewhere between 45 and 50 is my guess. This route is partially off trail or unimproved trail and unimproved trail. I'd say 3/4 of it and 3/4 or 2/3 of it is improved normal trail, and the rest of it is unimproved trail. So wilderness permits are available through Sierra National Forest. They start open January 1. And this was kind of a big thing this particular area is undamaged by the 2020 Creek Fire. The Creek Fire was just west of this and just north of this. So you're gonna drive through some burn area, but as of right now, knock on wood, it's stopped at Florence Lake. That fire is actually still burning and is not 100% contained, but it is burning on the north side. So the odds of it getting to Florence Lake are relatively slim. I have a feeling that we'll be seeing some snows and some rains up there pretty soon. So that's the primer on this one. If that's all you wanted to know about the trip, you've got it right there in the first couple minutes of it. So here is what the trip looks like. You're going to start at the north end at Florence Lake, take the boat ride across, and we went clockwise. So we came off to the right, looped around, did the little switchback at the bottom end, and then came back around to it. So to get your bearings where this is in the world, so there's Florence Lake that you'd come in and be coming in from the northwest. Over off to this far right side, that's Evolution Valley. So that's the John Muir Trail. It continues on. So there's some crossover with the John Muir Trail / PCT. So if you're going to be doing a JMT loop or North Lake to South Lake would be on a small section of this, but that's the Evolution Valley. Down here at this far end, this is Goddard Canyon. And if you were to continue down Goddard Canyon, continue south on that, that will put you up into, is it Martha Lake or Marie Lake? And now I will double check and see if that shows up, which is, it's a popular destination. It's another way to do a cross-country connection back into the JMT and evolution. So, and then over here off to this section, this is Courtright Reservoir. And I really like this Red Mountain Basin from this trip that I'm talking about. So we went back again this year. This time we came in through Courtright Reservoir and came on the other side. Didn't do the full loop, so we did a modified version of it. So that's kind of where this is in the world. So you start off right with the boat ride, which is kind of fun. It's a little luxurious. But it was really fun doing this boat ride across the lake. At this particular time, you can see the dam. So the water level was really low. So the Florence Lake store wasn't running their big boat. They're running their smaller boat. So I think the boat could handle maybe 10 people. And that was about it, 10 people with packs. So it's not an enormous boat, but it can navigate the shallower water that was in there at the time. And depending upon the water levels of the year, it's going to vary which boat they use. And actually, since this is most of these lakes in the Sierras that are dammed are run by Edison, Edison Company to run their hydroelectric. So depending upon how much water they've let out to generate electricity, that's a bigger impact versus the moisture, the rain had, although that impacts it. So this lets you out on the other side of the lake, and just off screen is where that lets you off. So you're going to, as you cruise along through this canyon along the South Fork of the San Joaquin River, one of the first things you're going to come by is Muir Trail Ranch. Muir Trail Ranch is where a lot of folks resupply as they're hiking the JMT or the PCT. The way they bring the materials into Muir Trail Ranch is they drive them down 22 miles of Kaiser Pass Road, put them on a boat, drive them across the lake, put them on a truck, and drive up to Muir Trail Ranch. That's why your resupply buckets are so damn expensive. Okay, so Muir Trail Ranch is there. The black arrows are showing John Muir Trail or the PCT, they're both the same there. So as soon as you hit that one connector where that black arrow intersects, you got people. This whole section along the South Fork of the San Joaquin is a busy section of trail. So if you came for a backcountry experience, you're going to be really disappointed on this section of trail until you leave the JMT. On this section, so this was still our first day, we stopped counting at some point. And I don't know if we stopped counting at 50 or stopped counting at 90, but we saw people, and the people are going either direction. So what's happening is JMT people are dropping down, going to get resupply and then continuing on, or people are coming northbound, they're going out to get their material and then coming back. So you have people going both directions. So it's quite busy. Now, as you get closer to crossing the river, you are going to cross actually the Paiute Creek first before you actually aren't going to cross the San Joaquin for quite some time. So you cross the Paiute Creek, and there's a really cool bridge at Paiute Creek. So bridges are always a great place to take a picture. So this is crossing that, and then you'll be on the right side of the South Fork of the San Joaquin River. So as you move along, I like this so much, and I was here before with my brother about another 5 years prior to this, and my brother and I did North Lake to South Lake. So we came over Paiute Pass, crossed this bridge, and then went up Evolution. We're not going to go on Evolution on this trip, but I thought we did a pretty good job on recreating a photo from 5 years to current day in the more sepia tone one. So that's what we were doing there. So cross that, and then we're going to start hiking down Goddard Canyon. Now, what's really nice is as you go down Goddard Canyon, at some point you're going to pass the turnoff to Evolution Valley, which, if you get an opportunity, that's a wonderful section of trail as well. A climb up from Goddard into Evolution is really nice, and then you get across Evolution Creek, and just gorgeous. But we're not going there this time. We're going to continue south through Goddard Canyon. Now, once we leave the Black Arrows and leave the JMT, we're going to have the trail to ourselves. This next section of trail, we saw one party for the rest of the trip. So that was really cool. So definitely some isolated backcountry experience that I really am hankering for. So as we go down, there's some really interesting terrain. Terrain starts to choke up, right? You know, we got some cool waterfalls. You get some really high gorges. Even though the trail wasn't too bad, it was relatively easy to hike through there. And if I'm not mistaken, this is named on the map called Pig Chute. So I'm guessing it's because it narrows down, and that's what it calls it. So, but yeah, a couple nice waterfalls in this section here. Also, some interesting old campsites. This was where we camped one night. I kind of really had to go back to try and find it. And for me, that's a lot of the fun, is trying to find an interesting campsite. So we might, drop packs and spread out and look around and see what'd you find, and from scale to 1 to 5, rate your site and how's it for this, this, and this. This one was a really good site. Obviously, it was quite some time ago. Tree was really chopped on and carved upon. Definitely don't condone that, but it's interesting history. It's still there. So continue down Goddard Canyon. And at some point, we need to get up over the pass. So there's this switchback down at the very end. And I think we camped by one of these creeks down just before the switchback is where that one image was taken from. So we make the switchback. Now, at that end of the switchback, right where it says campsite in the very bottom of the screen, elevation is just a tad under 10,000 feet. Okay, that's great. And then we're going to climb up to the pass at 11,500. 1,500 feet. What is it? It's 3.5 miles to the switchback. So maybe 5 miles, 1,500 feet. No problem. That's great. Could do that all day long. Yeah, no. From the switchback at campsite at the bottom of the screen to the switchback partway up, the little pointy switchback, that's 3.5 miles. And there is an effective 75 feet of elevation gain. It's 10,000 feet. We'll call it 10,000 feet at point A and 10,000 feet at point B. The trail does undulate, and it looks really nice. It's like, oh, this isn't bad. Well, what happens is that after that last pointy switchback, it makes up its 1,500 feet. There we go. Okay, now we're starting to figure out the name. Helferscher. Yeah, I was swearing on that last. I made it to the next switchback, and that was the point where I caught up with Sandra and them. And Sandra goes, "I can see the pass. Should we just keep going?" Didn't say a word. Just took off my pack, threw it down on the ground, and just sat down. It's like, I'm taking a break right here. So the trail, it would have been really nice if there was a nice even incline over that 5 miles. Not the case. So that's that last part. If you're going to go over it from this side, save some gas in the tank to get over that last section. So, okay. So Helferscher Pass is the high point. So we've got, the approach up to it, but that at some point you're going to reach the pass. So the trail where Mike was walking before is still a semi-maintained trail, but it's not used nearly as often, so it's not as beat down. The pass itself is very rocky, but then it turns back into a trail again. But it's very rocky and exposed on this section of the trail. So 11,005 feet or thereabouts. Now we need to drop back down into Red Mountain Basin. So that's what a lot of this is, right? Is Red Mountain Basin. So that starts off with, as you drop down off the pass, one of the first things you're going to get to is Helferscher Lake, and then continue on to Disappointment Lake, and then you can get back down into vegetation. If you look at the map, you'll see that there is no green around Helferscher Lake or Disappointment Lake. There's very little tree cover. It's for the most part above tree line with pockets of trees. So Helfershire Lake and Disappointment Lake. That sounds horrid. Sounds awful. Not at all. Complete misnomer, right? So this is Disappointment Lake, and it is not the least bit disappointing. Some awesome views. Fantastic. I love the campsites here. Got some nice sandy spots tucked in among some trees. Good beach for swimming. You can walk around it. You can go to the outlet. Highly recommend this lake. I'd really enjoy it. And what's interesting is this picture is actually from this last year's trip. So it's not even from the one 5 years ago, but the exact same place. So this is Disappointment Lake, not disappointing. Wonderful slabs of granite. So what's kind of cool about this is this last year that we went, we did some cross-country travel between Disappointment and the next lake down. I think it was, it'll pop. It's right in the tip of my tongue. But we did some cross-country travel over that. And with these slabs of granite, really easy to do. It's a great, if you're not comfortable with cross-country travel, or if you're just starting out, this is great terrain to do cross-country travel. It's not always easy to know what the terrain looks like. You know, if it looks like this, once your eyeballs see it, you're like, oh, I could cross-country this, but the map may not give you that information. It might be blocky talus the size of a house, and it may not show up on the map. So when you see this kind of thing, this is good cross-country travel. Now, at some point, we start dropping back down into tree cover, and we're right on that edge of the tree line. You can kind of see Helfershire Pass, or at least the Red Mountain on that rounded top on the left, and then the pass is kind of hidden in that notch there. But we're starting to drop back down into vegetation and tree cover again. Not a whole lot of drop, but just a little bit. That gets us into the next leg of the trip. And now we're going to be back in tree cover, all this green vegetation, heavy forest. We're going to go past Post Corral Meadow and then up Post Corral Creek. Okay, so there's going to be some climbing involved on this one. So some pretty heavy forest. This is one of the forks there, and still pretty decent trail, although where this meets with the main trail, the connector there is almost invisible. We were at the same a different intersection, maybe a couple miles down trail from this one, and the trail is all but invisible. It took us 10 minutes of all looking. Actually, I think we were just at a good clip, and we intended to stop at this junction and just bypassed it. Like, what? How did we do that? So we had to double back. So hidden trail before this, back to normalish trail. So this looks pretty well maintained here. It's kind of laid out, but that's not going to be the case on this section of trail as we climb up. This was a good example of the trail going up. If you look really close, you'll see a little beat down path right in the middle, in the foreground there, and then it just disappears. Now take this trail. Now this trail is definitely unmaintained. It is not taken care of. When you take a trail this faint, that's rarely traveled, and then you don't maintain it, and you have trees blow down and cross the trail, now you have to make this 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 mile loop around the blowdown to get back to your trail, and you've lost this faint trail, because you could take 5 steps off of this trail, go use, find some bushes or something, and you come back and you could lose the trail really easy. So it takes a lot of work to keep your eye on a trail like this one. So with that, with the blowdowns and stuff, it was really challenging. Now, what was really fascinating about this one, and I think this really hooked a lot of us on off-trail and cross-country travel, is it wasn't really hard. It wasn't difficult physically, but it was mentally challenging, right? So we had 4 heads on a swivel, all looking for where the trail is. Got it. I could see a marker, maybe occasionally you might see a blaze, and you're going to hike to that next point. And then you're going to lose the trail again, and then you need to find it all over again. So, and then the other thing that we used, this is another good navigation technique, is as we were going up, Post Corral Creek was always to our right or to the east. As long as you could either see, hear, or know that the creek was to the east on your right, and you're going uphill, you're going the right direction. So it was a good navigation handrail to have that creek on one side and to know we're traveling uphill north. We weren't lost. Maybe we lost the trail, but that wasn't a big deal. So this turned into be probably our funnest day of the whole trip was this section. I'm disappointed that we didn't go to this section of trail on this most recent trip. I might have to do this whole loop again. So. And of course, you get a nice reward as you get up. There's a little bit of a pass. You come back over, and there's another lake at the top. I take this back. We did see another group on this one, and this group got this wonderful, gorgeous, quiet lake, and there was a group of Boy Scouts. So, yeah, Boy Scouts. Not the quietest bunch. I mean, I guess you put a bunch of teens and preteens out in the wilderness and give them an opportunity to be a little bit away from their parents. I could see being noisy. Okay, getting close. Make it over the hump. Got the last final stretch here. So this last final stretch, we need to get back down to Florence Lake and to the boat launch. So this is going to be downhill. I think it's downhill almost all the way, if not all the way. So this section was probably one of the more difficult ones to navigate. And when I stopped at the Florence store and I was talking with the counter guy there, and I told him what we were going to do, he says, "Oh, cool, you're going to do a loop. Nobody's ever found that trail that comes back down to the lake." Like, oh, okay. That challenge accepted. So it turns out that this trail is maintained or is a lightly used at the top. And then we got maybe a third of the way down and just lost it and never found it again. We were using a GPS. We were using all of our heads on a swivel. We were looking at, never found it. So halfway down, I said, to hell with it. And we just started going down, and there was a little bit of a drainage that we could follow. But this is one of the deceptions that can happen with some maps is Forest Service USGS topo shows this as a trail. CalTopo on their CalTopo, their main map doesn't show it. Forest Service, this is a Forest Service map right now, I believe shows it. So some maps shows it, some maps don't. There's very little of a trail there. So we had to use our navigation skills, mainly go downhill. So as we're going downhill, no real trail, we're just making our own way. So great slabs of granite, picking our way, generally going down. We knew where the lake was, places we could even see the lake, but we want to get to the trail that runs around the lake and get around the lake with the least amount of effort. Well, as often can happen with cross-country travel, you can make some mistakes. So here we actually boxed ourselves in. There was nothing of a trail here, dropped in, and it was kind of rocky. It wasn't too bad getting through, but we had a couple people that had sore joints and were getting a little tired and grumpy. I dare say Sandra's face doesn't look too happy right there. And turns out we were boxed in. So right behind you taking this picture is just a wall of vegetation and trees. There's no continuing down to the lake. It's not going to happen. It's like tree on tree. So it's not going to happen. So dropped packs, did some scouting, and found the trail again. We were so thrilled to be back on the trail that we actually started going the wrong direction for a few minutes, maybe a little longer. Like we were going to take the trail back around the lake without going to the boat launch. So realized our mistake and came back. So it was a really happy moment when we found the inlet to Florence Lake. Well, that meant we're half a mile from the boat launch, right? We couldn't see the boat launch yet, but we had to cross this bridge to the inlet to the lake. So we're ready. We're almost ready to get our boat ride back and to get our burgers and beers and all that good stuff. Well, the boat has to come back to get you, right? So they don't sit at the other side of the lake waiting for you. So the way they do this is they have a radio phone. So it looks like a phone connected to a radio, and it radios over to the store. And I remember when we were in the store before we left, you could hear people radioing in and saying, "I'm ready to be picked up. Please come." And I said, "We'll be there in 15 minutes. We'll see you." Well, during this whole week of our trip, my brother Mike had this elaborate plan that he wasn't telling anybody about. And he really wanted to do this tactical call in for a rescue or something like that. So even though it was 75 or 80 degrees, he wanted to put on his tactical hoodie and dig it out. And oh, by the way, it happened to be at the bottom of his pack, not the top of his pack. And when he picked up the radio phone, it was something along the lines of boat launch base. I have 4 hikers in need of immediate extraction. I say again, I have 4 hikers in need of immediate extraction. The person at the store, like, yeah, we'll come get you in a few minutes. We'll see you. So, and that brings us back to our boat ride back across the lake. So that's the thumbnail sketch of this one. So coming back to the vital stats on this one, it's a good drive, which all this area is a good drive from San Diego or from points of Southern California, but that don't take Kaiser Pass Road lightly, right? That is something not to be trifled with. Boat ride, highly recommend, somewhere in the 45 to 50 mile range, but also know that there's going to be some travel that is not going to be paved like the way the JMT is paved, right? It's not going to be, 4 foot wide, unmistakable, because there will be some places to be mistaken. I'd highly recommend having good map skills and having a GPS somewhere in your team. And so far it has not burned. So let me stop sharing this one. So if you got any questions for me, I'd be more than glad to answer it. If not, I'll give it a minute and see. I can probably vamp for a second. But so it's kind of an interesting area in that when we came in from this year, came in from the other side, and we actually came into Red Mountain Basin and then went south from there. So good to know. So, all right. Well, I think that's all I've got for tonight. So next week, I'm going to be back with Sandra's going to join me next week, and we're going to talk about what I intended to talk about this week was gear that you wouldn't leave behind. So it's essentially going to be some of your favorite gear, like what's my favorite hoodie, or what is this? I would never leave my hoodie behind. Right. So I'm always going to take it. So that's, for example, that's one of the things. So we're talking about some of them are gear that really, really works for us, and maybe something that we replaced. Later on, I'll do stuff that I leave behind now. I've grown out of it, or I'm just over it. So we'll have both sides of the coin on this one. So thanks so much. Glad you all could join. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a lot more before this one. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll have a great week.